All right. I have not been on YouTube talking about fights for 12 or 13 days, which is crazy. Last time I was hanging out here, chatting with my friends about fighting, I was in New York City. We had just seen Rose beat Joanna in the first round. We had just seen TJ come back from getting dropped in the first round and win. And we had just seen George get Mike out of there in the third round of an insane fight. So it was Sunday, I believe. I was going to the airport in China. I sat down. Good morning. I sat down and I chatted about those things. Then I got on a plane and I went to China. In China, I commentated between 900 and 1,000 martial arts performances in 3 days. And it was incredible, and I learned so much. I learned so much from studying martial arts in a different way. I'm going to talk about that another time. I'll be back at shooting from a new studio, from a gym called Budo. Tomorrow, it's Monday, and we will be talking about things I learned from studying Chinese martial arts in China and how they relate to martial arts and things we learned from martial arts. So we'll get to that tomorrow. Hopefully that'll be up late day Monday, early day Tuesday. But I'm dying to hang and chat about fights. It's what I do. It's my whole life. I have done. So there are some questions. I don't know if people see them, but there's some very nice compliments, and I thank you for those. Someone asked about Kung Fu. I have done a little, but I studied it deeply. Bisping versus Gastelum. I just thought it would be, somebody just said it sounds like a great life. It is. I'm thrilled right now. I literally study martial arts every single day, and then I share what I learned. And yeah, China was incredible. If you go to my Instagram, there's some crazy stuff over that I ate and saw and did. It's at Robin Black MMA on Instagram. But let's talk about Bisping and Kelvin. Personally, I love this fight. There was a note, somebody just popped up and said it makes no sense for Bisping. Derek just said, I bet there's no smack talking in China. The whole world of, I'm going to get back to Bisping and Gastelum in just a second, but now you've fucking hooked me. We will talk a lot about this, but the whole world of martial arts is consumed differently. It's viewed differently. It's discussed differently. It is understood and experienced differently. And I was in Korea earlier this year. I've been in Russia twice in the last 6 months. I'm planning to go back and do some commentary over there before the end of the year. And the rest of the world, much of the rest of the world, consumes and understands and experiences martial arts and combat very differently than we do. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But it's an incredible thing. I really learned a lot. And it changed the way I see things, and it's going to change the way I try to share things in hopes that we aren't stuck in looking at things exactly the same way. We're very repetitive in the way we look at things. We look at it exactly the same way every single time, regardless of how different and unique and special it is. But so this is one of those unique and special fights. We'll talk about the technical. We'll talk about these are humans, and a lot of our discussion and our understanding and sharing of fighting is leaving out. More and more, every time we look at it, we're seeing of them as sports teams or entities or robots or machines. These are humans. So now we've got Bisping, and there's a lot of questions. I'll get to some of them as best I can shortly. Bisping is a left-hander that fights with his left hand forward. Okay, so normally if you're left-handed, typically, not normally, there's no normal or abnormal. Typically, a left-hander will fight with his right hand forward because in many views and understanding of martial arts, you keep your power weapons back. So that is why a southpaw is a left-hander. Power weapon back and power foot back, right? Boom! We set up our power. And but Bisping is a left-hander with his power hand forward. Okay, and that's not abnormal. Robbie Lawler is a right-hander with his power hand forward. Somebody asked when I will interview fighters again. I'm going to Detroit, so we're going to sit down and get a bunch of people in Detroit and Winnipeg. So Bisping is a left-hander with his left hand forward. Through much of his career, people kept trying to develop his right hand, make it stronger, make it stronger. That's his weaker hand. He writes with his left. He talks on the phone with his left hand, you know, eats with his left hand. This is his primary hand. That side of the brain activates it. It's better. It's more practical. It's more proficient. So a lot of his coaches tried to strengthen his right hand and his right kick, right? Whereas Jason Perillo over time realized, let's just feed it all to the left hook. Which is why Bisping knocked out Rockhold, which is why Bisping's hurting people in a different way. So you're a southpaw, but your power hand is your right. Then you're not a true southpaw. Oh, you're a southpaw, but you're right-handed. Yeah, it's exactly the opposite. It's like Robbie Lawler's the same. Perillo has funneled the game to the left hook, right? Now we talk a lot of nonsense when we talk about fighting. If you ever hear somebody say, "Oh, that guy's a volume puncher, it's an accumulation of punches," that's just fucking nonsense. Or that guy he's got pillow fists, or he doesn't hit hard. We'll talk about that more another day. But the growth mindset is the driving mindset of martial arts, and the growth mindset works for all of us. If I study anything and I apply effort and training to anything, I will improve it. You want to be a better piano player, you practice piano with a piano coach and get practice and deliberate practice and feedback, and you work and you get better. You want to, juggle better, you train and you juggle. You want to jump higher, you go on a training program to increase your vertical. And you want to punch harder, you do the same thing. You build your balance and your power, your stance, your looseness, your relaxed nature until the end, your nervous system, you develop all of these things. They are not born or made. Every single day, every single martial arts coach teaches somebody to hit harder. Every single day. And then many of them will say, "Oh, you're born with it or you're not." That's not true. It's not true. The maximum potential may be genetic, but you can improve everything with effort. So anyway, anybody who went into a fight ever thinking Michael Bisping hit light, or anybody who watches and go, "Oh, well, he can't knock anybody out," you're crazy. And which is why you're shocked when he lays out Luke Rockhold. Because these guys change constantly, right? So anyways, that assignment, left power hand forward, is a different assignment. And Gastelum is a southpaw. So Gastelum is left-handed, but his power hand is back, right? He will fight both stances. You've seen him fight both stances. But he's most often, got his power hand back, right? There are some power you're born with, right? I mean, when you were a baby, you had no power. And when you were 12, you had very little. And when you're 80, you'll have less. It's fucking bullshit. It's a myth. It's bullshit, and it's just a propagated myth, like most of the shit that we say in fighting. And it's partly television's fault. It's partly word bites, Twitter, things like that. This guy's got knockout power in both hands. Your hands have no power. In fact, you have no power. Power is not something you have. Power is something you create. So there's 2 or 3 or 4 completely improper things in there, and they train our understanding incorrectly, right? So anyways, Bisping has developed a lot more ability to generate power with his left hand and has become a more complicated fighter. So it's very challenging for Gastelum, you saw him not quite get to Weidman, not quite get to Weidman, not quite, and then boom! And he fucking all the way in. That was him sort of, on one level, we'll say, finding his range, right? He never lost it. So again, finding, like a lot of our language will mislead us if we really want to look, but slowly calibrating his distance, calibrating his weapon. Another part of it was hesitation. Another part of why Gastelum didn't get to Weidman, didn't get to him, then finally gets to him, is hesitation, right? Kelvin was hesitating. There was so much going on in the brain, but you are at all times, you right now as you're watching this, you're still somewhat intuitively aware of whatever threats are out there. That's bred into us. The reason we still exist as a species is because we had an awareness. Okay, is there a saber-toothed tiger over there? Is there anything over there? You know, is that volcano going to go off? Whatever. You're generally aware of dangers. And as you're starting to, and my stream is lagging, sorry about that. As you are starting to find awareness of these dangers, your brain is making choice. Okay, what do I need? Oh, there's a saber-toothed tiger over there. Okay, we better move this way. Calvin's brain and the brain of fighters is highly calibrated, highly evolved, highly developed in such a way that they will be able to read these threats. And if there's a big threat, it says very bad connection. Sorry, guys. I don't know why that would be. I have good Wi-Fi here. Very bad connection. That blows. But, so, he will hesitate. And as Kelvin hesitated, he couldn't quite get to Weidman. When he finally got to Weidman, he got to him by going deeper with his punches. He's going to need that same thing. That experience was excellent for him for this fight with Michael Bisping. That experience was, oh, thanks, guys. That experience was excellent for this fight with Bisping, because Bisping is also, you're a very smart fighter. You're picking up a lot of fucking weird threats from Mike. A little different. He moves a little different. Partly that is by being such a Heinz 57 of training throughout his life. All these different things, travels all over the place. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, my friend. So he's kind of got a Heinz 57 game that's pieced together, duct taped together by all of the things that he's learned. And then also, he's a left-hander fighting orthodox. So 2, 3, he moves slightly different. You know, he uses kicks a little bit differently. His game is very individualized. They all are, but Bisping's is different than everybody else's. Bisping's also sometimes we use the word fearless. Other times it's like, he feels it still, but it has less, he's desensitized himself to it over time. That he accepts the threat and accepts the risk. Bisping is a risk taker or a risk acceptor, I would say. So it's a very difficult fight for Kelvin. Very difficult fight. These are my early thoughts. I'm going to go back and watch both of their fights. I've watched Bisping and GSP a lot of times. Very proud of Mike and George. That was a brilliant, beautiful fight. Am I part Asian? No, I have some native in my father's parents. Yeah, it was a beautiful fight. Incidentally, George told me that when he got up, so he's underneath Mike, and Mike is just elbowing him in the face, just drilling him. Again, we've talked about this a lot too. The guard is an offensive position, and people have mistakenly got this idea that it's only for getting up. So that's what these guys are exploiting. People on top are thinking you're only trying to get up. While they think that, you elbow them in the fucking face many times. So Mike elbows him up. George's face is full of blood. And George is a risk assessor. And, risk-reward assessor. And George doesn't like to take risks because that's smart. That's why he's the champion. That's why he has such a good life. That's why he's a happy person. That's why he came back when he was ready to come back. George comes up and realizes, as the blood is filling both of his eyes, that very quickly that the biggest risk of losing this fight increases if this round ends. Little Métis in there from my dad, yeah, not a lot. I can't quite claim to be exotically Native American, but there's a little in there somewhere. I'm answering questions if people wonder why I go off onto even weirder tangents than usual. So George comes up from the ground and realizes the biggest risk, so it's a risk if I open up now and just fucking get overly offensive with Mike. It reduces my defensive systems, increases my defensive liabilities, and that's a risk. But a bigger risk is let this round end and go back, and the doctor takes a look, and I got something like this, and this fight is over. George doesn't want to lose the fight. And in his mind, he's assessing, hey, if this round ends and a doctor comes up, I have no fucking idea what that doctor's eyes are going to see right here. So George opens up, which is why that fight went the direction it went. Could have gone the other way. Mike could have landed on him in those chaotic exchanges. And so Mike created the scenario. George, like the Terminator, risk assessed, realized opening up was the answer, and opened up. Could have been him, could have been Mike. Came down to it, which is why he doesn't take those risks usually. He doesn't roll dice because he doesn't know how they're going to come up. So, tell me about your tattoos. We got some Bruce Lee over here. Oh, look, we got another Bruce Lee in a different flow and crash. Anyways, So there it is. So fascinating. Anyway, so I just want to talk briefly before I take off. So we've got the southpaw versus swapped southpaw, or, what do I like to call them? I forget. I have a name sometimes I call them, but it's my own. It's just Southie. That's what I call it. So Bisping's a north Southie. I don't think that's a real term. It's just one I like to use, but it sounds good. Google it. I don't think it's anywhere, but if you hear it, tell them I said it first. Not that shit matters. People say shit all the time. Words are just shared ideas. But yes, so Bisping's a north Southie, and Gastelum fights often from southpaw, and is a proper old school unorthodox southpaw. So that's an interesting thing. Reach, Gastelum's experience getting to Weidman is a very valuable thing. Gastelum's like a little demon. But the interesting thing that for me is that these are humans, and it's something we keep forgetting, and it's something that not only is it unfair to them to forget, but it's unfair to ourselves. Like, if we treat these guys like somehow they're more special than us, we're missing the point. Michael Bisping was once just a tough teenager who liked martial arts. Later in his life, through work and dedication and sacrifice and journey and fear and overcoming setbacks and so forth, he was the fucking champion of the world. More wins than anyone in UFC history. Okay? If you think of him as some other thing than you don't get anything out of that. If you think of him as just like you, the only difference is the things he's learned and the work he's made, the sacrifice he's made, you realize you can do shit like that too. That's real. So that's one. It's one reason it's unfair to think of these guys as inhuman. It's unfair to yourself. The other thing is, I was speaking with somebody, and he's like, I said, yeah, can you believe Bisping's? I was just at his after party and having drinks and chatting with his friends and Perillo and sitting talking to his wife and telling Mike how, that he should start to understand now how special he is. I know on some level he sees that, but, if he only does have 2 more fights, you should fucking really let that sink in for these and really enjoy them, right? And by the time I get to China, the motherfucker has accepted a fight with my boy Kelvin. And so that I said that to somebody, and they're like, well, he's a true professional. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's not a true professional. That's a human being. That human had to turn to his beautiful wife, who he loves and loves him, and say, by the way, sweetie, I think let's fucking do this again. He had to call his kids, if he wasn't home yet, which he might not have been, or turn to them and go, all right, guys, I'm going to do this. He has to call his coaches and his friends. He has to go back to the gym. You know how fun it is to party in the 10 days, even losing. Losing sucks, but you have this freedom now. You can eat burgers and you can drink whiskey. You can't do any of that shit when you're making the biggest sacrifices in the world to go fight. And Mike's just going to shut all that down right now and get on a fucking plane to China to fight some badass kid. Badass kid. Badass. Kelvin Gastelum's a fucking badass. And Mike's just going to go do that. Think, again, he's just one of you. He's not some robot. He's very human. And that, hey, Will, what's up? And that human being shut down, put down whatever, whiskey. Maybe he likes to smoke pot. I don't know. I don't know what he likes to do. Maybe he fucking has a burger in his hand and he's, I'm going to lay on the beach. Maybe they had a vacation booked. Because most of us, after a fight, we book a vacation. No, we're not doing none of that. I'm going to China. And I'm going to fight Kelvin Gastelum, who's been training to fight Anderson Silva. Kelvin's a fucking badass. And he's just going to go do that. That's amazing. And then take Kelvin on the other hand. Another guy. You're a human being preparing for something. And they call you up and say, no, it's something else. It's something totally different. He's got to do that. He's got to adjust his mindset. Now, if he's been doing well and if they've been where they want to be, it's just a body and a collection of skills. That's the ideal. But he's still a fucking person, just like you. Oh, fuck, it's Mike Bisping. And then somebody would be like, yeah, that's easier than Anderson. There's no easier. There's different. There's no easier or harder. They're all hard. want to make them as easy as possible, but they won't be easy. They're human fucking beings in a fist fight, in a cage, in China. And there's only one chance to do it. They don't have a second chance. You fuck something up. You know? Fuck something up and it's over. Bisping now doesn't want to lose 2 in a row. Not that I don't know that he ever, if he has, maybe once. But he's also the Southpaws. Vitor. Rockhold. Chael. Right? So to some, now again, this is, yeah, the connection sucks. I apologize. It'll go up and hopefully you can watch it again.